Like if they wanted to induct like Bob Barker, I would get that because he did something cool that people liked.
Yeah, that people still talk about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, there's celebrities who should go in. Like, at this point, I think Maria Menounos should go in because she's
wrestled matches, man, like multiple times.
Yeah, she tries to do every year at WrestleMania if she can. So, her for sure, you know?
I mean, that makes sense. Or even inducting, like, celebrity super fans. Like, if he was still alive, like, Michael Clark Duncan would be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Or do, like, just put in Seth Green because he shows up every time you need somebody.
Yeah, and if you ever watch Robot Chicken, there's so much wrestling on there because he's just a big fan.
Celebrities who did services for wrestling.
Yeah, well, you can, by my guess, Flo Rida and Diddy will eventually be in too.
I mean, I guess Flo Rida has offered up his entire catalog time and again.
Yeah, and expect to see a lot of him the next 2 years in Florida.
Oh, boy. Just like one time, can we just get Pitbull just to spice it up? Just to
good Lord. Oh, that'd be great.
Just Pitbull doing boner jams in the audience. Welcome, cats and kittens, to another installment of Cewshcast, not 5000. We are one and only home for wrestling talk in the entire stratosphere. I am here without our good friend Julius this time. He has abandoned us to various pursuits. I have heard rumors that he has donned a cowl, and since he lives quite close to Chicago, is now haunting the skyscrapers of that city as a masked vigilante. Do you have any word on that?
I haven't heard on that, but I've heard that the crime rate has dropped in the area for some unknown reason.
And I believe it's Julius falling on criminals off of tall buildings.
On his cow, or does he have a cow, or is he the cow?
I guess he's the cow. Oh, man, don't let him hear that we called him a cow.
Oh, good Lord. Sorry, Jules.
Sorry, Jules.
A cow man.
A cow man. As you've already heard, I am still luckily joined by Artie, so say hello, Artie.
Hello, New York, and other places.
And other places. Speaking of the difference between New York and Chicago, do you imagine that Batman comes from New York or Chicago? For some reason, I always pick Chicago.
I can actually answer this with certainty.
Okay.
So in Young Justice, there is a scene where Robin pulls up a map. And on the map, it pinpoints exactly where Gotham is. And do you know where Gotham is located?
Where?
Right near Hartford, Connecticut.
I don't know if that is actually true or not, but I know that that's what you would say even if it wasn't true, so I'm just going to let you have it.
So the fact is Batman is from Connecticut, and so that means that he would be from the New York region.
That only makes me more sure that Vince McMahon is the Joker.
Well, I have my own chaos theories about Batman and where he belongs in the universe, and they go places, man. They go places.
Oh, boy. All right, so today on today's show, Artie and I are going to cover a whole range of topics. We're going to cover a little bit of Raw, a little bit of TNA, a little bit of Hulk Hogan humping a chick and making $115 million off of it. And then we're going to go a little bit to New Japan, and we got a whole bunch of questions at the end. So it's going to be a great show. Let's get right into it. Speaking of Vince McMahon, he kicked off Raw this week. He had all manner of horrible things to say about Shane as usual. And then, just right off the top, I got to ask, what do you think about the way that they're going with this whole Shane McMahon is an MMA badass versus the Undertaker thing? Are they trying to convince us? Because on the show, Shane McMahon literally actually stood toe-to-toe with The Undertaker and did an impressive job until Vince McMahon pushed him in the back. Are we meant to believe, genuinely speaking, that Shane McMahon is the equal of The Undertaker?
No. We're meant to believe that Shane McMahon is as good at mixed martial arts as Brock Lesnar, so he can go in there and defeat The Undertaker. 46-year-old Shane McMahon, who hasn't stepped in the ring. Mind you, Shane's last WrestleMania match was WrestleMania 22 in Chicago. That's 10 years ago. Now, that means that Shane McMahon is stepping into a WrestleMania ring for the first time in 10 years. He hasn't been involved in fighting in about 5 or 6 years. But no, he's so good at MMA now, he can stand toe-to-toe with The Undertaker. My only hope is that Shane McMahon comes out to WrestleMania, obviously in usual Shane gear, but I want him to have the big, heavy MMA gloves that only Brock and Taker are allowed to wear.
I mean, there can't be a version of the future where, like, Shane McMahon puts The Undertaker in a fucking guillotine choke and wins. Like, that's not a realistic future, is it? I mean, like, I think we were all accepting of a possibility that it could be something like when Kurt Angle fought Shane McMahon and Shane McMahon just died for 20 minutes, did some high spots and had a chance. Like, I think we can all accept that as a possibility. Like, if he jumps off the cell, he can win. But that's not how they're selling this at all. It's Shane and his lightning fast rabbit punches versus The Undertaker.
No, and I honestly still believe that Shane is going to win the match. I think he's going to do it by nefarious means, but I think it's going to come down to the posse runs in, I don't know, the ghost of Test comes in, Bradshaw comes in with a mean clothesline, and Shane is just going to fucking do like a 40-foot jump off the top of the cell, elbow drop, you know, or some shit like that. Something stupid is going to happen. Shane McMahon is actually going to beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. I have no doubt about this at this point.
Now, let me ask you this. Like, we got in a lot of questions this time, some that were along the lines of, will losing to Shane McMahon hurt The Undertaker? Now, The Undertaker's 50 years old. I don't think he really gives a shit about his momentum at this point. But imagine for a second if Lesnar hadn't beaten Undertaker. What if this were the match? What if this were it?
See, that's the thing is, I think that they're redeemed by the fact that Brock's already broken the streak. You know, like Brock broke the streak. The stigma's gone. Shane can win now, and it won't matter anymore. Taker still gets paid his fucking ludicrous sum of money to work one match for like 17 minutes. Shane makes his fucking $500,000 or whatever he's going to get, and everybody goes home happy.
And as silly as the whole Shane McMahon thing is, there's no questioning that he is the most over man on the roster right now. So, I mean, I guess you do it, right? Because his shitty little rabbit punches are getting bigger pops than anything anybody else on the roster is doing.
Yeah, man. And I think that at this point, we all know how the main event's going to go. I don't think there's any doubt that it ends clean win, the big handshake, Triple H and Reigns make out and all that. But the other two matches where everyone's like, I mean, could they? Is this match and the Brock and Ambrose match. Now, for me, I think only one of them has to end in an upset, and the other one has to end with a definitive winner. And I think that it's Brock and Ambrose that ends with the definitive winner of Brock Lesnar. I think Ambrose comes close. My buddy and I were talking about it. We're like, they need to do like, you remember when Undertaker and Jeff Hardy had that ladder match on Raw?
Oh, fuck yeah, that was a great match.
You know, and Jeff hung in there, but in the end, Taker still beat him, and then Taker just holds him up, and he's just like, that's the man. And that's how you do it. You have Brock just barely beat him. Brock's a bloody mess. Dean's a bloody mess. At the end of it, Brock just does what he hasn't done since he came to WWE, and he gives Dean Ambrose the respect. Brock still wins. Ambrose comes out of it looking like a god. It puts Ambrose up in the upper echelon for the title run eventually, hopefully this year. But I think Shane is going to be the one who gets the big upset win of the night.
You know, if that exact circumstance happened, I would be thrilled because I think that would make Dean like basically the top babyface in the company overnight. Again, it wouldn't really even be close. I mean, like as far as reactions go, that's a tried and true winner.
Absolutely.
And the one interesting thing about what Dean did on Raw is that Mick Foley got involved. And for those who don't know, like the big thing that was supposed to break Dean Ambrose out when he was in FCW back in the day was Mick Foley wanted to have a feud with him, but his body couldn't deal with it. So they just wound up scrapping the whole idea. But I mean, is Mick Foley turning up in Dean's life something you'd like to see regularly, or do you want that to be a one-off?
I mean, I kind of like it being the one-off. And what I honestly saw it as was the passing of the torch. And he literally passed him the barbed wire bat.
which has previously been a torch.
Yeah, exactly, which has, in fact, been a torch before. To me, I like it a lot. I thought, and, I mean, we've had the discussion before of, like, who in the Shield is who, and, like, Seth got passed down the pedigree from Triple H. Now, Dean has the barbed wire bat from Foley. I could honestly see, like, Roman getting something from, if not Dwayne, then it's got to be from John, you know? But, like, I kind of like this, like, here, you know, you are the new generation, you're the next thing. And I like that Dean is, like, he is this generation's Foley. I mean, the guy never fucking wins, but he's undeniably stupid over.
Oh, for sure.
Like, it's unbelievable the amount of times they've had him lose to people clean. And he's still a top-tier babyface. And the guy literally has 3 moves, and he wrestles in your grandmother's jeans, you know?
Yeah. That dude really does need to step his jeans game up.
Yeah. Oh, God. I think it'd be better if he went full R-Truth and just wore, like, rhinestoned and airbrush.
If he and Archer switched jeans, that would be the greatest thing in the world. Okay, let's see. There's a bunch of other stuff on Raw. Honestly, I really loved Raw. I thought that segment for segment, like, it really put things over and got things moving. From them somehow turning the New Day full-on babyface and getting the League of Nations the first heel heat they've actually had, to Dolph Ziggler actually getting to do something interesting for the first time in years, even if it was basically being Taka Michinoku circa 2001 against Triple H. I really liked the entire show. There were just a few notes that I wanted to bring up with you just to see what you had to say about him. The first is are R-Truth and Goldust leading to being a tag team together? Or are they leading to becoming a couple on national television?
I would fully support them becoming a couple.
Yes.
I think it would be incredible. I still think they're going to pull the bait and switch. I don't think it's supposed to be Golden Truth. I think it's going to be the Rhodes brothers. But that's just because I'm insane. But yeah, it's so weird. I don't know, man. I have no clue where it's going. I find the segment so pointless.
I mean, they just kind of flip-flopped for, like, Goldust was like, hey, be my partner. And now Truth's like, hey, be my partner. Like, you would guess that in theory they would both move on, and then, like, Cody would come up and be like, hey, both of you guys, be my partners. Yay. And just keep adding people into it and into it. Hey, you guys, let's start a 10-man stable.
Oh, my God. Well, it could literally be like Social Outcast Part 2.
That would be good. And I think there's room in WWE right now for, like, a 20-man stable of misfits.
And I genuinely don't know why there wouldn't be, honestly. Like, why not?
Okay, let's see. What else happened on the show? Definitely, I don't even really want to talk about the Neville injury just because the amount of injury that he has is going to be very painful. And actually, I'm really excited to say that for those of you who read the blog, we have somebody who is actually part of the medical industry who's going to be weighing in for us when people get badly injured about, like, his experience with the injuries and, like, the extent of them and the expected recovery time. Like, we actually have, like, a medical professional on our staff now.
God, where do we find that?
I don't know why in the hell he wanted to participate with us, but fuck it, we got legitimacy. So you can look forward to that in the coming week. But, I mean, what did you think about not only Neville's injury, but how the weird way that they wound up having to handle it?
Oh my God, dude, the injury spot, it's something so simple. It sucks that he got hurt. The good news is his projected recovery time is only 3 months, which isn't bad at all. I mean, it sucks because he's missing WrestleMania.
Right.
And, I think we can all safely assume that it was going to be a fatal 4-way or a 6-way for the IC title. And now it looks like with Neville out, they're just going to shoo Jericho and Styles into their own match. And that kind of leaves us with a triple threat situation for the IC title, which I'm not fond of because I don't like The Miz in there. But I think that with the mishandling of Sami Zayn, they think Miz will bring some quote-unquote much-needed star power to the match. But the situation with Jericho and the ref was interesting, because they were yelling and shoving, but they were also communicating. And I think the whole idea was that Jericho was just like, he didn't I don't know who didn't realize that Neville was hurt, but they just had to communicate to each other, and it wasn't happening, you know?
Right.
And I think the ref was trying to tell Jericho, like, he's hurt, and then Jericho got up, and that's when he shoved him and goes, he's hurt! But I think it was more of a question than, like, yelling at him.
Right.
I don't know. It was just a very strange situation. It wasn't handled all that well, but, you know, what can you do, man? It's live TV, you know? People don't understand that kind of pressure. So I don't blame him for how it was handled, but until we officially hear something like from Jericho on his podcast explain it, I'm not, like, blaming it on either person.
I have to say, I think Jericho tried to handle it well. It just wasn't a convenient situation for either guy. And, I mean, like, that's not the end of the world. And hopefully there aren't any long-term repercussions for Neville, because obviously, like, for a high flyer to, like, badly damage, like, their ankles and their legs, I mean, that's not great, but it doesn't seem like it's anything that's going to be long-term.
Yeah, that's the good part. I mean, it seems like it's just a fucking freak incident. But they said that the injury could have been worse, but for what it is, it's really only a 3-month recovery time. And plus, Neville is kind of superhuman anyway. Like, the guy's chiseled out of granite. Like, I think all that muscle saves him. Yeah,
I think you're definitely right on that one. And the last thing that I want to talk about with Raw is specifically because I want to talk to you guys about it with Raw. Unfortunately, Julius isn't here, but I believe, and I could be mistaken about this because every time I think that I'm sure about these things, I'm wrong. Aren't you guys like the biggest Ryback fans I know?
First of all, it's the Ryback.
The Ryback, my
second
mistake.
Of all, yes, absolutely.
So what do you think about Mr. Ryback's new situation, like his new direction? Because I genuinely do like that he's got like a lot more aggressive, and he lost the singlet, and he looks like $1 million now, and it's just it's coming across the way it probably always should have.
This is my suspicion. I think that with the decline of main event talent over the last year, that they're ready to give Ryback one last shot. And I think they went to him and said, Ryan, you need to bring it with character. You need to stop the 8,000 colors. Like, you need to, you're not Warrior. You're not going to pull that off. Like, you're not even Bailey who can pull that off. You're the Ryback. Like, you need to look like a serious competitor. And I think that's what brought about the change. And I think, and this is my call for post-WrestleMania, I think we're going to get Reigns versus Triple H rematch at Payback or Extreme Rules. Is it Payback the next one right after WrestleMania?
Yeah, I think it is.
Right? Yeah, so I assume they'll get the rematch at Payback. We'll get Reigns in like an 8-way at Extreme Rules. And then after that, I think it's going to be Reigns and Ryback working those 2 months, like Money in the Bank and whatever else.
Right.
Before we get to SummerSlam, where I think they pull the Shield triple threat, or Reigns and Rollins, or Reigns and Ambrose, or Ambrose Rollins. It all depends. But I think that they're going to use Ryback for at least a 2 pay-per-view run against Reigns. And that's why they're building him up now. I could honestly see him beating Kalisto at Mania, having a 1 month or 8-week build with the U.S. title before he drops it. But I think that's what's going on. I think they're basically saying, like, we botched your last main event run. You weren't ready. We weren't ready. Here's how we're going to do it now. And everything's being set in motion for that.
And I would honestly love to see it. Like, I was sick to fucking death of Ryback for the longest time. But it's funny how, like, a small change of attire and, like, some actual direction in his promos can just, like, it can make a character do a total 180 in your mind. You know what I mean? Like, he just doesn't look like the same guy anymore. And that makes me interested, because I always wanted to like the big murder machine who clubbed people to death. Like, I liked that from the very beginning. Now maybe I can actually like something tangible.
Yeah, and I mean, it's such a weird situation because I don't know who's looking forward to the Ryback versus Kalisto one-on-one for the U.S. title. But, hey, man, WWE are determined, and that's what they want to go with. When, you know, my thought was Kalisto Del Rio in a mask versus title. And I think in Texas, that's something you should have gone with. But if this is what they want to go with, man, I couldn't be any more down on this card if I tried. So it's whatever to me.
Oh, I would love it if they did Ryback versus Kalisto If Kalisto loses, he loses his mask. If Ryback loses, he has to wear a mask so he can cover his ugly ass face.
I would kind of like to see what a Ryback mask would look like.
Big. It would look fucking big. With giant ear holes.
It's literally just a motorcycle tarp that they stuck on his head.
Okay. So let's move on. That's pretty much it for WWE right now. We're going to jump into like the big WWE WrestleMania preview next week when we get Julius back. So we're going to kind of hold off on all that for him. Same with like the Sting injury stuff, his finally retirement. We're going to cover all that with the Hall of Fame, all that good stuff next week. So right now, let's move on to probably Artie and I's favorite segment, because every single time we talk about this, Julius just kind of sits to the side and at the end says, well, that sounded crazy. So I'll just pretend to be Julius at the end of this conversation to do his part. And let's talk a little bit about TNA. Artie, what the fuck is going on in TNA?
Okay, so in TNA, here's what's happening. They had a storyline, and then they dropped it.
What? No.
I know. It goes against everything TNA was founded on. Everything I've ever heard about TNA. I, for one, am shocked. But Cewsh, if you'll follow me, I'll take you through the story.
Well, let's give it a try.
So, last summer, if you can think all the way back to summer 2015, so much has happened since then. In the world has changed as we know it since summer 2015. Now, in the summer of 2015, Cewsh's actual favorite wrestler of all time, Matt Hardy, defeated EC3, the actual only good heel in TNA,
true,
for the TNA Impact World Heavyweight Florida Championship. The next day, he vacated it on YouTube. And then they proceeded to hold
YouTube.
a 6-month tournament to crown a new champion. At the end of that 6-month tournament, Ethan Carter III won his championship back. Everyone was happy. Oh my God, it's time. Finally, EC3 is going to run roughshod on Pop. By the way, Pop, fantastic channel if you're a fan of watching the OC at 1 in the afternoon.
Which, of course, I am.
Which I can't even joke. We do at work. We have cable TV in our office, and that's what we watch in the afternoon is OC.
That is fucking amazing.
Right? Isn't it great? So, anywho, 2 weeks later, Matt Hardy wins the title back by turning heel, turning his child heel, turning his
little
heel.
Baby heel.
His baby is heel. And by accident turning EC3 face, which nobody wanted.
Nope.
And eventually they turn everyone heel. Rockstar Spud turns heel. I don't know. Jimmy Jamoke turns heel. Everyone's a heel. We're all heels, right?
Bobby Lashley just turned heel.
Of course he did. Because, of course. So then, Matt Hardy is 70 days into his title run. That's 2 months and 1 week into his title run. Having his rematch with Ethan Carter III, who, of course, right, you'd have EC3 win. He's now a face. It's going to be great. Everyone's going to be happy. And instead, they have Drew Galloway cash in money in the Feast or Fired and win the championship out of nowhere because, of course, they did. Because, of course, they did. 8 months this storyline went on. And what's our fucking payoff, Cewsh? What is the fucking payoff?
And you know, this is one of those situations where I just feel so dirty in the end. Because after we made fun of how Matt Hardy's baby was the heel on the podcast, I'm not going to lie. I went and checked out a couple of Impacts. And it's not like I was enamored of what I saw. Everybody on the whole roster has an ugly beard. I don't know what the fuck is going on with Decay. The X Division is basically just Trevor Lee and throwing his pale ass at luchadors. But the one storyline that actually did somewhat intrigue me was this one. Matt Hardy was doing really effective heel work. As weird as it was for EC3 to be a face, the fans were so fucking into it. I mean, he was the first over baby face that WWE didn't build first in TNA since fucking Samoa Joe. Like, it had been a long time. And, like, it was interesting. And I was kind of like, oh, I might actually watch that EC3 Matt Hardy match. And then for them to just fucking – they took a mighty, mighty dump all over anything that could possibly be interesting about this storyline. They took a build that needed 4 more months and said, nah, and then just passed it off. And like, the belt is the entire crux of Matt Hardy's character, the entire crux of EC3's character. So to put it on someone completely unrelated, it's a work of TNA brilliance. Like, you couldn't script this. I know somebody did, but I have to take my hat off to them. It's a work of self-destructive art.
It's, you know what it reminds me of is when they were like, oh, CM Punk just cut a game-changing promo. They want him on every show. He needs to be this top star of our company right now. And then they have him lose the title to Alberto Del Rio 4 weeks later because Mexico tour, you know? And then it was just like, oh, and then give it back to John, and then back to Del Rio, and then Punk can have it back. And then you're like, okay, they're going to run with Punk. And then they ran with Kevin Nash. And then they ran with
He can't even run. Why are they running with him?
Dude, Triple H got to beat Punk at the absolute height of his career. And then Punk went on to WrestleMania where he was like the 4th match on the card. and it's that. It's like it's a small scale version of that. Like, this is literally like, obviously the difference is like NBA and like watching, you know, a couple of kids play out on a basketball court. But it's the same idea where you have your biggest storyline and you piss it away.
And see, here's the bigger reason why that's a different comparison too. Because despite the fact that CM Punk was massively like crossover media successful, WWE doesn't have to go with any storyline, doesn't have to push anyone, right? It can, but at the end of the day, if WWE just has John Cena, whatever, they're fine, right? Yeah. TNA has nothing, any scrap of attention, recognition, enjoyment that they can wring out of their fans. They should be so thankful for, like they're a man finding an oasis in the middle of the desert. And yet they treat these things as though they're annoyances that they need to get rid of as soon as possible.
Yeah, and the crazy part is there's literally nothing else going on in the company. Like we just said, the X division's dead. The tag team division is literally the Wolves, and one of them's hurt again. Beer Money, which I mean, we both love fucking Bobby Roode and James Storm. They're too good to be doing fucking tag team wrestling still.
For sure.
And the Decay, a group that is literally just a Marilyn Manson entrance theme. And then people nobody cares about.
Yep.
Like, it blows my mind that 5 years ago, TNA initiated the Monday Night Wars Part 2 with Hogan and Bischoff, and Jeff Hardy returned, and so-and-so was there, and Cock Blaster McBallbuster. Like, they had everyone in the industry. They had AJ Styles still. They had Sting. They had Foley. And now look at them, they don't have a single name left.
Did I ever mention that I had a dream recently where Charlotte came out and reformed the Four Horsemen with Seth Rollins and Beer Money? And like, I woke up and I was so fucking sad about Beer Money and how they're just going to waste away in their careers, and that dream was the best thing that could ever happen to them.
You know what the funny thing about that version of the Four Horsemen is that Charlotte would probably be the arm.
Yeah, actually, I think you're probably right. She'd be the muscle.
Everyone else just fills in. Yeah, there's Rick and everyone else, but then it's just like, Charlotte's gonna be the enforcer because what the fuck that?
I think she's the tallest. That's for sure.
Oh God.
Oh, fucking TNA, and like, what can you even say? Like, shame on me for giving a shit about you, TNA. Shame on me for thinking, oh my God, there's a baby who's a heel. That's interesting. Yeah, that baby's already going to be a face in its own program with fucking Sami Callihan or whatever next week. And I can't even deal with it. Sami Callihan, welcome to the roster. Job to this baby.
No, honestly, I do think the baby will be King of the Mountain champion before the year closes out.
It can't climb a ladder. It can't even crawl yet.
Like, just take a brief look at who's been King of the Mountain champion last year. If you'll stick with me for a second. It went from Jeff Jarrett, who does not work for TNA.
No.
And then he vacated it because he cared so much about it. And then it went to PJ Black.
When did he work for TNA?
He didn't. he didn't. This was during the Global Force invasion. Who he had it for one day. Who then lost it to Bobby Roode, who was doing an invader gimmick that he was an invader from TNA in Global Force. But at the time he was contracted to Global Force, but then Global Force didn't have any shows, so he came back to TNA.
Oh my God, what?
And then Bobby Roode lost it to Eric Young, who then formed a tag team with Bram, and now Eric Young and Bram are defending the title against Beer Money because that makes no fucking sense.
They're defending a singles belt in tag team matches.
Yes, because the tag titles were stuck on the Wolves. That makes no sense because Eddie Richards or whoever is fucking hurt, and there's no other tag teams besides the Decay. Well, now they hired Les Legionnaires from NXT. So that's a thing.
Oh, yeah, they did. They hired the Legionnaires. And I know that you guys were kind of excited about the potential that those guys could have had. In the past, the guys like that going to TNA, I mean, that's exactly who should be going to TNA, guys with potential who need a bigger opportunity. Best of luck to you guys.
Yeah, dude, like, Impact gets 200,000 views, I think. So roughly about what the Raja front page does on an average Tuesday afternoon. And people are still signing up to join.
It actually bums me out, the idea that more people may read my reviews than watch Bobby Lashley matches.
I know. Dude, Lashley needs to just fucking come back already.
He's the only person on that roster who looks like WWE might want them. I'm just going to put it that way.
But he doesn't want to come back because he's pretending he's an MMA fighter. And that's the part that just baffles me. Like,
yeah, and his MMA career is more of a work than anything I've ever seen.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, Christ. All right, let's move on from TNA into something that's a little bit quirkier. I don't really want to talk about this, but it's such a big topic, and it's all anyone's talking about. It's all anyone's on Twitter making GIFs out of Hulk Hogan dropping legs on the Gawker Enterprises. Like, we have to talk about the fact that Hulk Hogan went up against one of the biggest websites on the internet who are the people responsible for his sex tape leaking all over the internet, and just won $115 million, which means he'll be able to afford steroids for the first time since Linda took all his money. By all means, Artie, you are way more interested in this.
Dude, not only am I interested in this, this has been my life for the last 2 weeks. We fucking watch the trial at work because it's the best. Hulk Hogan just won a court case using kayfabe. Like,
wait, what?
So, Gawker's whole argument was that Hulk Hogan shouldn't be bothered by his sex tape leaking because they had audio of him on the radio discussing his sex life all the time, talking about how big his penis is and all the women he slept with and how, oh, since Linda, I've been with this one and that one. Oh, I do this. Oh, I'm such a fucking beast. And they were just like, Hulk Hogan, Mr. Hogan, do you deny this? He goes, whoa, brother. First of all, that's Hulk Hogan talking about his sex life. I'm Terry Bollea.
What?
They go, so do you deny that you went on the radio and said you had a 10-inch penis? He said, whoa, Hulk Hogan has a 10-inch penis. Mine is much smaller.
Yes, that's the greatest thing I've ever heard.
And so his entire argument was that he's not Hulk Hogan. And the prosecutor fucking killed me because they were just like, what are you possibly saying? He goes, brother, I don't know how else to explain it to you. That's Hulk Hogan. I'm Terry Bollea. I don't know what you want from me. And by the way, there was like a pre-trial to determine if Hogan could wear the do-rag in court or not. And he won that. And he wore the do-rag for the whole case.
Oh, well, that's probably for the best because I genuinely cannot imagine how sad it would be to just see bald ass Terry Bollea sitting on the stand.
I don't know what you're talking about, brother. He's had a full head of hair forever.
I wish under oath they had forced him to make a list of things that are true about Hulk Hogan, but not Terry Bollea.
And he was just like, yeah, Hulk Hogan has a full head of hair, brother.
Hulk Hogan's got 56-inch pythons, brother. Terry Bollea about 32 inches.
But it gets better. So not only does Gawker have to give him $115 million, which they have to put up, by the way, if they want to appeal the case. They have to put up $115 million.
Wow.
In order to appeal the case. And if they appeal, the idea is that if they appeal, they might be able to get down to $80 million. But that's only the first part of the case. The court still wants them to pay additional punitive damages, which means Hogan could still get another $50 million out of them.
Fuck. It's just nuts to me to imagine that revenge porn, which has been somewhat of a scourge of the internet underworld for years and years and years, finally has its victim champion, and that motherfucker is fucking Hogan? Not the thousands of 18-year-old girls out there being victimized. No, it's the fucking Hulkster.
Listen, brother, it's still a tan guy. It's still a tan blonde person from Florida. Like,
oh my God,
someone's getting their revenge. No, but in all honesty, this is crazy because it sets up the precedent that from now on, if you post a sex video on your website without the person's permission, they can come after you, and that means, just think about this, buddy, for the next 10, 15, 20, 50 years, people are going to say, back in the Gawker versus Hogan trial, the precedent was set, and you now owe this victim of your crime as much fucking money as they asked for, so go get fucked. Like, it's amazing to me, dude.
Not only the idea that Hulk Hogan had never been lower than he was like 6 months ago. His reputation was in shatters. His legacy was over. Hulk Hogan, for all intents and purposes, died and left the corpse of Terry Bollea to keep walking around the earth. And now he's a fucking hero of privacy and decency laws.
Like,
he'll go into the history books, man.
Like, for this case will be in law books. And, like, I've had to take law courses before because, in the world of finance and business, law is very important. I've had to take law courses, and in those law courses are so many famous court cases. And right now, someone at McGraw-Hill is furiously pounding away at a keyboard, typing up the story of Hulk Hogan versus Gawker for future lawyers to debate about.
I'm honest. I'm very rarely in my life am I speechless. I mean, if anybody in real life who knows me to any extent whatsoever, speechless is not really a thing that I'm accustomed to being. But at this moment, I don't know what universe we live in, man. Now, that's the thing, too. I don't know how to respond to this story. Obviously, I'm on the side of Hulk Hogan here because what was done to him was wrong and illegal and ridiculous and has been used to victimize so many countless people throughout the years. But Hulk Hogan's an evil dickhead. No,
brother. Terry Bollea's an evil dickhead. Hulk Hogan's fine.
Hulk Hogan is a real American, brother.
Like, my world just continues to get amazing. Now, do you watch American Crime Story? OJ versus people?
Hell yeah, I watch that shit. Hell yeah.
Now, is it not true? Like, is it not your thought that, like, season 3 needs to be Gawker versus Hogan?
Oh, my God, yes.
Right. And then, like, me and my buddies were, like, booking the whole season 3. We're like, who the fuck plays Hogan? And
Kevin Nash.
Oh, good Lord. Oh, good God almighty. That's a great call. I want to leave that up to the listeners. When you hear this, please tweet us at RDDN, at Cewsh Reviews, and at A Psycho Soldier, because you're going to be really confused what you're tweeting him about. Who you want to play Hulk Hogan in the 3rd season of American Crime Story, Gawker versus Terry Bollea, a.k.a. Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
And remember, since the tone of the show is it has to be like a washed-up actor from the 90s or something like that. Just like a former celebrity who needs like one last shot at glory. That's who's always in those shows. I'm thinking Bubba the Love Sponge should be played by like Ron Jeremy.
That would be fantastic. And I'm just booking for Hogan right now. Just shooting, since you said, former 90s star, Chuck Norris.
Oh my God. He would have to like puff up on steroids.
I think it'd be perfect. And like Chuck Norris, just picture Chuck Norris with the mustache.
And the bandana in a bald wig.
Oh God, this Hogan thing. It's the greatest story of just the American legal system. I love it.
Oh my God. Okay. I don't even know how we recover the fucking show. All right. Okay. But there was a serious subject that we did want to talk about. And there's no easy transition between Hulk Hogan getting paid $150 million to have sex on camera and this topic. So I'm just going to fucking jump into it balls first. We wanted to talk for months now. We've been kind of putting this off from show to show because it's a larger topic and one that we never really had a ton of time to get into before. But the idea that New Japan Pro Wrestling has become so welcoming of Gaijin wrestlers that it's very difficult to say that it isn't basically an entirely Gaijin promotion. Obviously, there are Japanese wrestlers who work there, but it is so incredibly filled with non-Japanese wrestlers that I think that we wanted to have like a conversation about at what point this might become damaging to New Japan to have all of their major matches feature a Gaijin, to have all of their titles revolve around Gaijin people. At what point do you kind of lose like the history and tradition? And this is sort of a tricky subject because when I say Gaijin, mostly I mean white people like showing up, and we're not trying to make this a social justice warrior kind of conversation. Everybody knows where I stand on those kind of issues. I'm not trying to bring it to the podcast. But like Artie, like how does it make you feel when, for example, on the last show, I believe every single match had a Gaijin in it?
See, to me, it's not even about like, the white people versus the Japanese people. It's the fact that I feel like focusing so heavily on American talent can be great for when they try to bring more of the company over to this country. The problem is you're going to kill the market in Japan. Now the Japanese people that's a beautiful culture. It's an amazing culture. As you've seen here in America, how many people are just in love with things from the Japanese culture? But if all you do in a Japanese company is have your Japanese talent lose to people from America, it's going to hurt the pride. And you have seen the gates in New Japan fall drastically over the last year. It's not even like a question. The gates have fallen, attendance has dropped. New Japan is doing well based off of other factors. Their books are nice right now. I think they have a lot of money coming in through various means. But you're going to start hurting and alienating your own talent if you continue to have a roster where 90% of the champions are non-Japanese people. And if you look at it, right, you've got the 6-man tag titles. That's the Bucks and Omega. IC title. That's Omega. You've got the junior title, which is Kushida for now, but he's probably going to drop to Will Ospreay next month, right?
Yeah. The junior tag titles are on Seidel and Ricochet.
And the junior tag titles haven't been on a Japanese team in God knows how long. It just bounced between Gaijins. And, I mean, the last Japanese person I remember holding those junior tag titles was Kushida with his white partner. The Never title is kind of fine for now, maybe, but with Michael Elgin showing up, you never know. That kind of thing's right up his fucking alley. And same thing when we talk about who could be the new champion after Okada. We talk a lot about a guy like Michael Elgin who can easily transition over there and win that title. And then you've got the tag titles. Yeah, they're on Great Bash Heel right now, but they were on Gallows and Anderson for a long time. And now there's a really good chance that it ends up on Tama Tonga and Camacho Tonga. And it's just like, you've had your titles strategically held by non-Japanese people for so much of the last 2 years, and that seems to be the business model for the next coming years. We talked at length last time about this war, the battle lines being drawn, right? Like, oh man, New Japan's aligning with these companies, WWE's aligning with those companies, and the companies that New Japan is aligning with, as much as we do love the fact that, oh my God, they're showcasing the best of CMLL. Like, no one can argue with those, the junior matches coming out of CMLL right now on New Japan programming. And everyone's excited for a guy like Will Ospreay to show up because he's the shit.
Right.
But now you're minimalizing the actual Japanese junior talent. So you're putting the access to junior talent that you have, you're instead sending them to work Noah, or you're leaving them in Dragon Gate or Wrestle One or Zero One. And you're basically just saying, like, we're becoming an American promotion in Japan instead of being a Japanese promotion that we're exporting to America. And my fear with it all is that they start placing such a precedence on, you know what, we're going to bring top guys from Ring of Honor to win our title over Okada, who has been our guy for 5 years. And what's going to happen is instead you're going to have Okada be like, hey, Triple H, that contract doesn't sound like such a bad deal now. And you could lose a top star that way. There's already rumblings of Okada being like, maybe not with New Japan. Fucking Shinsuke just left. And that's something none of us ever thought we'd see, but it's one of those things where you do see the roster getting more full, and you see the change the company's making. And I think a lot of it has to do with Gato and Jado, who are huge American wrestling fans. Huge. Jericho has said this because he used to tag with them in the 90s, and he's just like, they love Memphis wrestling. Like, that's their passion.
And you can see it in the product that they put on. I mean, you can see that absolutely.
100%. And I'm sure that, like, those Japanese talent love having those American guys around because they do love our culture and stuff. But I think it is damaging to the product when you have 70% of your roster in New Japan Pro Wrestling are just guys from America, Britain, and Mexico who aren't Japanese, who aren't puro wrestlers, Right. I think it's just they do need to make sure that, like, you don't place importance on Camacho and Tama Tonga over GBH, who've been there for so long, who are like, that was the feel-good story of the year. And I don't want them to lose the titles right away, like with Mayu Tag, where they won the tag belts and then they dropped them like the next month.
Yeah. I think one of the really important things here is that New Japan is trying to become a global promotion. They know that they and WWE are the only true, to expand on the point that I made last week, they're the only real promotions left on Earth. They're the only true competition to each other. And New Japan knows that it is in an arms race for talent. They're signing up all the best talent. The problem is that what you're running the risk of may not even be so much hurting the product. You're losing your identity as a promotion. All of the tradition, all of the stature, all of the prestige that is caught up in the traditions that to some extent you had to go by the wayside. In order to be successful, New Japan had to strip itself of a lot of the misconceptions from the past 20 years of Japanese wrestling. They had to open the doors to new talent. They opened the doors to new ideas. And when they were the most successful, when New Japan was really hitting on all cylinders, it was a version of what it was before with all of these new features that made it exciting, right? It revolved around the center of amazing Japanese wrestling matches in the main event. And then in the undercard, there was all this interesting junior wrestling, and there was all these interesting new tag teams. And the Bullet Club was an invading force of Gaijin that demanded respect. But now, so much of the roster is just Gaijin that aren't connected to Bullet Club anymore. They're just there. And then you go and you lose like Nakamura, and you lose a lot of the older guys like Nagata, who has to move. Like, he's still wrestling, but he can't wrestle as much. Like, he's moving on. And then all of a sudden, what you're left with is a hodgepodge roster that fans aren't in love with. I mean, you have your core. You have Okada. You have Naito. You have Ishii. you have Makabe, you have these guys, but a lot of them are getting much, much older. Of all the young talent that you have on your roster, it's really just Okada, Kushida, and Naito that are representing the traditional Japanese wrestling. And where else is it coming from?
Yeah, and to me, I think that they haven't been as protective of their top talent as they are, like, in Mexico. Like, you go to Mexico, there's been a couple times where the top guy is an American or, maybe a Japanese guy rolls through the territory. But for the most part, you can say that the top guy is always a Mexican. God, what's his name? Macias aside, he's Puerto Rican, but, he's a huge star in Mexico. But for the most part, it's always been traditionally Mexican top talent because it's a Mexican these are Mexican companies, Mexican tradition. They wrestle the Mexican style, the Mexican booking, and having your own guys on top helps to keep the people interested. So it's a little hard when New Japan's like, okay, now we want to push Naito, but we've pushed him so far down the card compared to these foreign talent for the last 2 years that now we have to rebuild him. And there's a lot of work that they have to do with him in order to make him a credible main eventer. And they've done good work, but it's funny because his biggest push has come off a tour of Mexico. It's like he went elsewhere, and when he came back, now he's worth more. Maybe that's just me seeing that.
No, it's absolutely right. And that's always been the tradition in Japan. But at the end of the day, in Japanese wrestling, there was always the center of, like, Japan is powerful. Like, Japan, like, we are our own style of pro wrestling that's different from everywhere else. They can come and assimilate themselves into us, but we don't change for them. Like, we're powerful on our own. And now what worries me is that in the race to compete globally with WWE, we're going to get to a point where it no longer resembles Japanese wrestling. So we have something that's completely different. And while what we may wind up having could be special on its own, I'm a little bit nervous to just throw Japanese wrestling to the wayside and say, all right, just be some kind of weird multinational glob that is unrecognizable as this great thing that we had. Especially since that's when it was special to me personally. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm Puro fan number one all day long. So obviously, like, that's not something I want to see go by the wayside. But
there's another issue that we haven't even brought up yet with this. When you're bringing talent over from America, they eventually get tired of taking those 16-hour plane rides. And then they're going to want to just stay back in America, Right. And look, they lost 3 members of the Bullet Club in one fell swoop. And don't think that didn't have to do with all 3 of those guys being like, look, man, I'm fucking tired of flying to Japan once a month. Like, maybe the money's different. Maybe I have to work a little more, tour a little more, but at least I'm touring in America. It's not 16 hours to Japan, and I don't like the food, and the culture's different, and everything's different from what I like. It's one of those things where foreigners do get tired of just going to fucking Japan at some point. So what happens if you load up your roster 50% American guys, and then all of a sudden, again, you have another round of 6 or 7 who get scooped up by WWE or Lucha Underground or, the growing scenes elsewhere. And it's just like, people just eventually get tired of making that trip to Japan. And if you build your company on these foreign talent, if a bunch of them just say, nah, not anymore, you lose a huge chunk of your roster again.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're not going to beat WWE with a roster full of mercenaries who could leave you at any moment. Yeah. Like, I'm looking at the card for Invasion Attack right now. Every single person on it, but I would say 4 people could easily just pick up and go to WWE tomorrow. And, like, that's no way to build a promotion, man. If you're going to compete with the big dogs, you've got to know that you have people who are sticking with you. Kushida and Okada are staying in New Japan. That's what you have to build around. You can't build around fucking Ricochet. He's not yours.
Yeah, Ricochet, who, by the way, he's contracted to Lucha Underground as Prince Puma. Right. So he can't appear on the Ring of Honor shows That's why, if you've noticed, they haven't brought the junior titles to the Ring of Honor shows lately because Ricochet can't do them.
Right.
You know? And then it's also the big political struggle because Ricochet's still an Evolve guy. So he's an Evolve guy, but he can't do any of their major shows. But then again, that's his into WWE. But on the flip side, he signed to Lucha Underground for 7 seasons. But on the other side, he's working New Japan. You know, so now he's getting stuck. As much as we've been saying, it's great that these people have these places to work. But on the flip side, oh shit, now you have people who are going to get stuck in this contractual limbo, like a guy like Ricochet is right now. And it can get messier from here. And I don't know, it's just a very strange world we're living in terms of pro wrestling right now.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. All right. So that was a bit of a deep topic. I mean, we could go on talking about this for another 3 hours because there's so much meat on this bone, and we've only just really started to crack the surface. But maybe we'll have another conversation about another time, maybe with getting Julius involved in it a little bit. God damn it. That's enough wrestling talk without questions being involved. So I know that I heard from you guys. I do occasionally actually read your posts and listen to what you say. I know it seems hard to believe because I don't respond because I don't really care all the time. But sometimes I damn well do care. So I heard that you guys were not satisfied with 3 questions. So since Julius is out of town and we're not giving you the full podcast crew, I said fuck it. One time only, the return of 3 and Enough Man. I need 5 questions. All right, boys and girls, this is my segment of the show and your segment of the show. This is where you've sent in your questions for Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Roger.com, KushReviews@gmail.com, and KushReviews.blogspot.com is no longer our website, goddammit. We have KushReviews.com because we're legit.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that's right. So you can send in your questions. As you've heard from the last couple of weeks, we're now asking for at least one themed question for each question asking times. This particular time, I asked for your questions about wrestling or killer robots. So we're going to have some robot questions kind of mixed in here among the fray. So we're going to have some fun with that. Before we do that, let's talk about the actual wrestling questions that people wanted to know the answer to. And this one is kind of, it's interesting that we brought up the Ricochet thing because RV Deonator from Twitter wants to know, since the WWE Global Cruiserweight Tourney will have a qualifying matches in Evolve, who do you see from Evolve who may qualify? And just for reference, I have here just a couple of the names in Evolve that people may actually have heard of. That includes Chris Hero, Drew Gulak, Zack Sabre Jr., Johnny Gargano, Sami Callihan, TJ Perkins, Drew Galloway, probably not since he signed to TNA, and some people named Timothy Thatcher and Matt Riddle, I guess. Sure.
Oh, my God. Okay, I'm going to need to pull up the Evolve roster, but honestly, the funny thing is, Evolve, most of those guys are cruiserweights fucking anyway, right? So most of those guys can qualify. The interesting thing to me is that you then expand it to people within the network. So you can bring in, like, the Chikara guys in or out of Chikara gimmicks. I'm not going to spoil who people are under the mask because, it's kind of a Chikara thing. But, God, who could? Drew Gulak, for sure. I don't know if you're a big Drew Gulak guy. I like Drew Gulak. I like his style. I like the fact that he's kind of old school wrestling, real good chain wrestler. He was an amateur wrestler, so I can see him qualifying. Obviously, Johnny Gargano. I mean, Triple H has a boner for Gargano, much like Cewsh does. Timothy Thatcher, who's the current champion, he's actually pretty good. I like him, and I wouldn't mind seeing him there I believe he meets the size requirement. TJ Perkins, another Cewsh favorite. He can fucking get lost.
He is no longer a Cewsh favorite. That's a Cewsh favorite from long ago. Turns out he's a huge dickhead in real life, so fuck that guy.
Yeah, I could have told you that one.
Yeah.
God, who else works there? If AR Fox is still there, he could qualify because all his buddies fucking work here.
That would be interesting. Has ACH ever worked here?
No, but he's also Ring of Honor now.
Oh, so, yeah.
He's actually in a really good tag team with Matt Sydal, and I like ACH a lot.
Yeah, I like ACH a ton. He's great.
He should come over. The one I've been fucking calling for months who needs to come over is Chuck Taylor. Please, Chuck Taylor. Please be in the Cruiserweight tournament. I just think it'd be great if Chuck Taylor had a big run, makes like the top 8, and then he just gets absolutely murdered by Biff Busick in like a minute and a half. God, looking over their roster right now. Let's see Jimmy Jacobs, but he's already writing for them. I still think Paul London and Brian Kendrick are going to show up. I know they're not exactly like in the network, but I could see them being there.
For sure.
God, there's that guy. There's a really interesting guy down there right now. He's like an ex-UFC star. He's actually a really interesting guy. I like his style. He wrestles a very much like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu based style because he's a pro wrestling fan. I can't remember his name. Any Evolve fans, please help me out here. He's actually fighting Thatcher for the title soon, but I like him. Yeah, I don't know who else, man. And I still don't think they pull all 32 from this group. I think they do use a lot of in-company guys.
Oh, for sure. I would be shocked if they didn't. Obviously, like the two that I'm really kind of focusing on are Zack Sabre Jr. and Johnny Gargano. Gargano already basically works for NXT, so that's sort of a gimme. But, I mean, Zack Sabre Jr., I think a lot of people have suggested that he might be like the person that they highlight in the fucking tournament itself, which wouldn't be any surprise to me whatsoever. Like, basically on the indie scene right now, if you can't get Ricochet, you sign Zack Sabre Jr. and feel good about it.
Yeah, man. And I've heard rumblings from my people. When I say my people, I just mean that I feed the cats that hang out outside the WWE office. I've heard rumblings that Zack Sabre Jr. is a big priority. And I think if you want to sign the guy who wins the tournament, you got to use ZSJ. He's the fucking man.
Oh, absolutely. For sure. Can't go wrong there. And yeah, my answer, Gargano. Gargano. Put him over. Have him face Devitt for the title. Have him beat Devitt for the title. Have him face Triple H for the title. Have him beat Triple H for the title. And then get naked on TV. Okay, so let's move on to question number 2. The next 2 questions are both about title belts. I know that you collect action figures, Artie. Are you someone who collects title belts too?
As in replicas or the plastic ones?
Replicas, I assume.
I do. I have had replicas before. I don't currently anymore. I sold them off. But yeah, I know a lot about the topic actually.
All right, so this goes right off the top to you from Oscar7Mex, who wants to know, what promotion main championship belt would you want to keep for yourself? Like, let's not say replica. Let's say you could bust into a locker room and steal any title on Earth and actually own it. What would it be?
I mean, the current WWE Championship I think it's such a beautiful belt. I love it, and I love what it represents. But, God, man, I mean, the IWGP Championship has to be it, right? Like, to me, that's one of the most beautiful belts in all of wrestling history. Very few things touch it. And when you just look at who's had that title, that's Nakamura's had that belt, Tanahashi, Okada, Styles, all these guys who are great. And I don't know, man. To me, that's what a professional wrestling championship looks like. If I could steal it, I would definitely have that hanging on my wall at home next to my My Little Pony posters. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's not even any debate for me. Specifically, the 4th version, the one most synonymous with Tanahashi. If I could have Tanahashi wearing it, that would be even better. But let's not even go down that road. Yeah, the 4th generation belt with like the white details on it and the gold. Beautiful. I mean, it's perfection. Like, you'll never top that in wrestling history. I know some people are like super partial to like the Winged Eagle belt from WWE and all these classic ones from history. Nah, it's all IWGP for me.
Yeah, no, I love that IWGP belt. For another title that I'm just a huge fan of what the belt itself represents, the lineage of champions, the first Ring of Honor world title belt. Like, sure. To me, I love that title. I love that it's plain. It looks like the old UWF belts. And if you look at the talent, I mean, Joe's run, Aries run, Punk's run, James Gibson with one of my favorite professional wrestling matches of all time won that belt. The Bryan Danielson run. I mean, Nigel McGuinness kind of tainted it, but that belt means so much to me as a pro wrestling fan that if Q stole the IWGP title first, then I would go break into Kerry Silkin's house and go take that first Ring of Honor title.
Hey, it's entirely possible that like you could find that shit on eBay. I mean, Xavier has one, I would imagine. And just to give like a shout out, because we just shit on them so much. The Winged Eagle TNA World Heavyweight Championship,
Oh, the
before
first one.
yeah, before they destroyed it with like the big ass TNA and like the tacky gold lettering, the one that actually looked like a title belt, that one, I always had a really big soft spot for that title. I thought it looked great. I thought it made their champions look legit. I mean, that's the one that like Joe and Sting and Angle and all those guys held. Like, it's a great title. Like, it's underrated in history.
Yeah, but do you know why they don't use that title anymore?
Why is that?
The company who was making them that belt. So, wrestlers obviously abuse belts as they walk to the ring. This is why WWE has 4 copies of every championship.
Right.
TNA didn't realize that, and so they had that title, and it kept breaking. And they would just send it back and say, we need you to fix it and get it back to us right now because we tape again in 10 days. Not realizing that, like, when WWE sends a belt off to be fixed, they have others. And they know it's going to take 5-6 months to repair and get back to them.
Right.
And TNA soured. Like, the title company who made that belt for them basically told them, fuck off and go have your belts made somewhere else because we're not dealing with you anymore. And it got to the point where they wouldn't fix the belt, and one of the tips broke off the top. And so TNA just broke the tip on the other side to match it because the company wouldn't fix the belt for them anymore.
That is somehow a quintessentially TNA story. And that makes it even funnier to me that like Kurt Angle started carrying around the old broken ass belt and calling himself the world champion.
Yep. It's it's the most TNA thing you'll ever hear.
Oh god. All right, let's move on to belt question number 2 on Belt Talk. This one is from Say Sorry, and he wants to know title belts. You prefer them to be worn on the waist or on the shoulder?
I'm always an around the waist guy, but I like on the shoulder for certain people, or not. Like like Austin. Austin wouldn't look right with it around his waist. Stone Cold fucking holds it in his hand. Dwayne drags it. That's his fucking MO, Like I like how Kevin Owens holds it. He always holds it like it's a prized possession off to himself. But he looks like a fighter, But I think some people are just made to have it around their waist, like CM Punk, Triple H, Daniel Bryan, around the waist because they look like professional wrestlers. They should have it around their waist.
At the end of
a guy like John Cena looks ridiculous when he wears it around his waist.
Oh, it like bounces up and down and looks all silly.
Oh, it's goofy.
At the end of the day, there aren't that many wrestlers who look good with a title belt around their waist. It's just like they don't fit most humans' bodies. Like for some reason, that round like Attitude Era WWE title, like it fit Triple H so well that like he could have never taken it off. You know what I mean? Like it just looked right. But like mostly belts just look fucking weird on people. And so I much prefer them to carry them around. But I mean, I like it when they get sort of creative with it too, like wearing them around the neck, or when Ziggler would wear it on his ass all the time. I love that. That was the best. But I mean, generally speaking, I prefer the shoulder. I think it's like a classier look. I think it makes more sense. But it does depend on the wrestler. What I will say is I love when people win the belt, when people like strap the belt on them, because I think as a moment that's super fucking awesome, and they should do that more.
Yeah.
Because it should be a moment that you got the belt, even if it doesn't really fit you or look good. Like everybody should get that moment. Okay, so let's move on to question number 4. This one is from our good friend Kotier over on Raja, and he wants to know, battle bots or robot wars?
I know there's a difference in the two. I think the Chris Jericho show was Robot Wars.
Yes, it was.
I'm going to go with BattleBots out of principle. Also, I used to watch BattleBots.
Yeah, BattleBots was the classic, man. It's the original.
Yeah, and I used to watch it because it would come on Fuse, and right after was Kaiju Big Battle, which I was also a big fan of. And for those who haven't heard, Kota Ibushi is going to Kaiju Big Battle.
Yeah, okay, we need to talk about this for just 1 second now that you brought that up.
Yeah.
He left New Japan saying that he needed to find a new style, a new craft. He wanted to take pro wrestling in a whole new direction, that he was starting almost his own brand, that he was going to bring new light to Japanese pro wrestling in. And all of that seems to have resulted in him joining Kaiju Big Battle. Like, he said full out that this is why I left to do this.
Yes, and Kaiju Big Battel just unveiled a championship belt, the hashtag championship. That's a real thing, by the way.
Oh my god.
And I fully expect for Kota Ibushi to be hashtag champion for a long time.
Please, for all of our unindoctrinated people, explain briefly what the fuck Kaiju Big Battel is.
So Kaiju Big Battel, for those who don't know, Kaiju is Japanese for big monster. If you ever watched Godzilla, Mothra, Ghidorah, you know what I'm talking about. Big monsters in silly rubber suits. In Kaiju Big Battel, the monsters fight in what you would assume a match between basically sports mascots would be. There are storylines. The evil Dr. Cube and his organization are basically the big heels. And yeah, it's basically a pure like comedy thing, and Kota Ibushi apparently wants to be there. I can't explain it.
I mean, it defies easy logic, but it's also so fucking awesome at the same time. Somebody just left a main event role in the second biggest company on earth to go wrestle in comedy matches on a basically like a cartoon TV show.
Yeah, and I fully expect that he will show up in Chikara, and he'll show up in any goofy fucking like there's a furry promotion out there somewhere, and I'm sure he'll go wrestle there. And I'm sure he'll show up in a women's promotion and just wrestle the women. And I don't... You can't explain Kota Ibushi. It's like we all have like that one friend who like it's like he could be, you know, the next president of the United States, but instead he actively wants to be a Starbucks barista. And that's Kota Ibushi. You're like, dude, you could own Starbucks. You could be the president. And he's like, yes, but my passion is making cats out of foam in lattes.
He really is like the Japanese Jeff Hardy in that way. Anytime you use him, he'll just accidentally become your biggest star, and then he'll just wander off.
It's the greatest thing in the world.
Okay, and that brings us to our final question for the day. The most epic question we've been asked in some time. Artie, you have been tasked by Akatsuki Artist to pick a team of 5 WWE superstars to control a Zord and eventually form a Megazord together to fight evil.
Does he say what kind of Zord? Like, is there a specific theme I'm supposed to stick with?
No.
Okay. 5 superstars, 5 Zords. Now I'm going to go with the Zords everyone knows, season 1 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, right? If I had to pick people to pilot each Zord, the Mastodon Zord, it's big, it's strong, it forms the arms, it forms the shield. It's just a big, powerful, it's lumbering. It's a lumbering beast of a Megazord, but it just denotes the power of Goshi, the Black Mammoth Ranger. Not so much Zack, the Black Power Ranger, but Goshi, the Mammoth Ranger. And it's this big, just beast of a Megazord, and I would very much have it be piloted by Lana.
What?
Then you have the Pterodactyl Zord, the pink machine that comes out of the volcano. It's this fiery just monster just erupting from a volcano, ready to form the chest of the Megazord. It's the centerpiece. This is where the Rangers sit in the cockpit. It brings the team together. And I would have it piloted by Byron Saxton.
What the fuck?
The Saber-Toothed Tiger, the Fast Zord, with a gun in its tail. It's ready to attack from any position. It can hit you from anywhere. It's so fast, so speedy. It forms the leg, one of the legs. It's piloted by Trini, the martial artist. It's meant to be the highly focused Zord. It's piloted by Boy and Jew Ranger. You know, it needs to be by someone who just knows their craft inside and out. Someone who is a serious competitor. As such, I would have it piloted by Bo Dallas.
God damn it.
Then you have the Triceratops Zord. It's fast, but it's not as agile as the Triceratops, as the Saber-Toothed Tiger, see, because it just rolls on wheels. But it's got a blaster on the back because it's made to be piloted by the intelligent member of the group. In Jew Ranger, it's piloted by Dan. He's sort of the big brother of the crew almost, so much more than Ghosh was. And this needs to be piloted by someone who is intelligent, someone who is cunning. As such, I'd have it piloted by R-Truth. Then you have the Tyrannosaurus Zord. This forms the the body, the heart and soul. This is for the leader of the team. This Zord is no joke. This Zord fully invokes the principles of hustle, loyalty, and respect. As such, there's only one man who should control the Zord, and that man is a woman. That's Brie Bella.
Not even the Bella who's actually with John Cena. The other one.
The Bella who actually fucking works a match every single week. The only member of that family who actively contributes to WWE. Down with Brian. Down with John. Down with Nikki. All hail Queen Brie Bella.
Oh my God! And then when they form up, she can just be like, Brie mode.
Brie mode.
Oh my God! I think you've done a stellar job here. I especially would dearly like to see Brie in the cockpit. Like, I don't know how to beat him. Do you have a plan, R-Truth? And R-Truth be like, what? What the fuck are you talking about?
But
why are we fighting monsters?
R-Truth and Bo Dallas just rapping away, and Lana's just over there doing her nails. It's the best, man. I think that's the way to go with all of that situation there.
I find that very, very hard to argue with. I will say that when I first heard this question, the immediate thought that popped into my head was that you would literally get the Social Outcasts, and they would each get a Zord, and it would come together to form Kurgan.
The human steroid?
The human steroid Kurgan.
Oh, God.
And they would be the enemy of yours.
I love it so much.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our questions and pretty much to the end of our show. As is customary, I will ask, do you have any homework for the good people at home, Artie?
Well, Daredevil Season 2 just hit Netflix, so go watch it. I have not watched it yet. I don't think Cewsh has had time to watch it yet. It's currently March Madness, so I think Cewsh is a little busy.
I do not recommend running a sports bar during March Madness. I don't.
Yeah. So, I'd say watch that, and, it's WrestleMania season. Watch some fucking WrestleManias, all the good ones, though, like, WrestleMania 29, WrestleMania 12, or is it 13 maybe? Oh, WrestleMania 15, the fucking classic. The Undertaker versus Big Boss Man, Hell in a Cell.
One of the only matches I've ever given... no, I'm thinking about the Kennel from Hell. I'm sorry. I thought to say that one of the only matches I've ever gotten a 0-2. That match has yet to be reviewed by me, probably for good reason. My advice, if you're going to watch... fucking Daredevil, why not watch the Punisher movie with Thomas Jane and get a feel for some of that sweet, sweet Kevin Nash acting that's going to lead right into him playing Hulk Hogan.
Yes, and also watch the Punisher movie. Actually, just watch all 4 Punisher movies, but especially watch the one with Dolph Lundgren because you will piss yourself laughing.
Yes. Watch them in a row and just marvel at how weird the Punisher has been through the years.
Exactly.
All right, and that'll do it for us, boys and girls. Remember, as always, to stay classy, don't smoke crack, and always eat your dildos and your burgers.